Welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. Real conversations with entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders who refuse to settle. This isn't about overnight success. It's about the decisions, discipline, setbacks, and standards that shape extraordinary results. If you're building something that matters, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. I'm really excited for our guest today. I've got JD. He is the founder of Biz Kids Hub. Welcome. It's so great to have you, JD.
Thank you for
JD
having me. I
Ribali,
appreciate it.
by the way.
No
Yes.
problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. I'm excited to tell you our story.
I'm excited to hear your story because for the listeners, my daughter Avery has participated in some of the Biz Kids events, and they're absolutely incredible. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Biz Kids is, and then really where the idea came from? Because I think that's the coolest part is the inspiration and the founding of it.
Sure. So, Biz Kids, we are a hands-on program to give the kids the opportunity to sell their products, make money for themselves. We host events throughout Southwest Florida. We have expanded out of the area outside of Florida to different areas, but it gives kids the opportunity to actually experience what it is to be in business. We teach them how to talk to customers, how to set up their tables so they can sell their products, and it just gives them an overall view of how real business works and gets them out there and talking to customers and getting over the fear of actually interacting with the human being, right? So we're all used to social media now that you don't talk to human beings anymore. So
That's so true. And Avery got involved when we lived back in Oregon, which, funny story, you and your wife Christina are from Oregon as well. Right. But when we lived back in Oregon and everything shut down, Avery started making baking cakes during her very plentiful free time. And I said, okay, I don't want to gain 50 pounds and lose a small fortune, so we've got to sell these on Facebook. And so she'd bake them, take a picture, send me the picture, I'd post it, and then whoever the customer was, she got to keep 50% of the proceeds. And that worked really well. But when we moved here, we didn't exactly have that network, and we stumbled across your events. And so she started making soaps and candles. And it's such a great experience for her to have vendor tables, to have great sales days, to have challenging sales days. Where did this idea come from? Obviously the mission is phenomenal, but what made you wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I'm going to create an entrepreneurial space for kids 6 to 16?
So it goes way back. When I was in third grade, I was struggling to make it, and my teacher in my school had my parents come in for a parent-teacher conference, and she told my parents that I was lazy, I didn't have focus, that I had no way that I was going to graduate from high school. And so she asked my parents to take me out of her class. She wanted me out of the school altogether. She didn't think I had the ability to succeed. And so my parents pulled me out. They started asking a lot of questions, and they had me tested, and they found out I was dyslexic. And so they found out I learn a different way. And so back in the day when I'm an old timer. Back in the day when they didn't really do a lot of testing at that time or know a lot about dyslexia. My mom kind of just took over my education. But both of my parents were educators. They both worked in the school system. So my mom just started teaching me at home. And we realized that, the way I learned and the way I was motivated by that entrepreneur spirit of looking for a business, trying to figure out how I could make money. And I was dialed in. If there was a way I could make a buck on it, I was wanting to learn and trying to figure it out. So that was kind of the whole start. The way the program kind of came out of that is during that time, my mom and dad were both educators. They didn't have any connections in the business community. They didn't have chamber friends. They didn't have business friends, so they didn't know how to network and get me involved with people that could train me and teach me. So I said, when I became an adult and I started getting into business and networking groups, why isn't this a great opportunity for us to take the kids and like show them how actual business people run their businesses, so they can learn the skills before they go and invest in a business that they don't have any idea what to expect. So we're here to kind of guide them through that, give them that mentorship, give them the background, the networking community, so they can actually make connections and learn from all the people that have done this over the years. So that's been our inspiration to get the program up and running. And
so going all the way back to third grade, you had a vendetta to prove the naysayers wrong.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now let's start with the kids' success stories, both financial and otherwise. What are some of the things that you've seen, the highlights, if you will?
Yeah, so we've been doing the program for 5 years now. We've had over 3,500 kids come through our program, from everything from doing a market to our Biz Kids Expo to doing field trip days with us, and just doing our regular trainings. We've seen all kinds of different things. Our average student at a market will make about $350. Our top 20% are averaging anywhere from $800 to $1,000, and that's for a 4 to 5 hour event on a Saturday. And so a lot of our kids that are older, like seniors in high school, they would rather do a couple shows a month with us versus getting a job during the after school. Sure. Because by the time they put in the time and effort to go to a job, they're not even making $1,000 for the week. And so our kids have really learned along the way is, hey, if I really put the time and effort into my business, I can have enough money to do all the other things I want to do during the week and still make money on a Saturday. So probably one of the most unique items that we've seen is a dog leash. We have Ella that she created for dog's sake. She created a crossbody dog leash because she was walking the dog and she said her grandma was trying to text her and she couldn't hold onto the dog and text at the same time. So she created a leash that goes over your shoulders and cinches up so you can be hands-free and using the leash. The great thing about Ella is she is a saleswoman. She knows how to get out there and draw people in to bring them to her product and see what she's doing. And so she's one of the top 20% that every time she does a show, she's easily over $800 in sales at every event. And so she's bringing in nice cash. She started with us 5 years ago. She started with us in the beginning. She has employees now that help her make the leashes so she can keep up with the demand. And then she's out there at the shows selling it.
And she's what, 15, 16 years old?
She just turned 16, just got her driver's license. Mm-hmm. So now she can drive herself to her shows.
And get her own, go to the store and get her own product.
Exactly.
Run all the errands. What about some of the non-monetary successes? Because obviously, we love the idea of our kids being entrepreneurial and making money, but it's so much bigger than just the money. There's the life lessons. Tell me about some of those that you've seen.
Sure. So one of the biggest things that we teach our kids is celebrate the failures. That's entrepreneurship is all about a series of failures until you find out what works, what's not working. And so when we do a show and we have kids that didn't do so well, and maybe they did under $100 or less, and they're discouraged at the end of the day, I try to have the talk with them as hey, this is part of the process. Why didn't you get the sales today? Let's talk that through and figure out, was it the product that people just don't want this type of a product? Was it the fact that you were sitting behind your booth on your phone and you weren't talking to people? Was it your display? Was it professional looking? Was it enhancing to somebody to come over and look at it? So we look at all those factors and try to figure out with them what didn't work, and let's fix it for next time. So one of the best thing non-monetary that I've seen and I've heard from a lot of parents is it just gets kids that opportunity to interact and have that confidence to say, this is my product, this is what I'm selling, this is what I do. And I have a lot of kids that come in the very first time. They're super shy. They don't want to have to talk to people. They're kind of hiding in their booth. And a lot of parents have said this pulls them out to get them comfortable with that interaction, so they have that human interaction there. One of the best compliments we get from people that walk through the show is they're like, we see these kids talking to people. They're not on their phones. They're engaging with us. So we love that. So I think that's probably one of the best, just to kind of get those social skills up and running at a young age.
Learning how to have real communication and back and forth dialogue, engagement, not just one word answers, is so important. And then learning how to get back down get back up after you've been knocked down. Resiliency is a lot of what I speak about. And actually why I built this show is to talk to entrepreneurs and leaders about how they've been resilient and relentless in their own business. So I love the idea that you are giving this opportunity to kids at a very affordable, it's very affordable to try this for your kids and sort of get them hooked on the entrepreneurial mindset. So I appreciate that as well. Let's talk about your starting your business. And why I named this Relentless Pursuit is I know that for entrepreneurs to become successful in the first place, they must be in relentless pursuit of their vision, their goals, their dreams. What are some of the things that you experienced, some of the failures and setbacks you experienced that you had to learn to overcome along the way?
Oh, yeah. So like I said, the reason I started this is because I saw all the failures that I had. And if I would have just given up in the beginning after one or two failures, I would have never had the opportunities that I had throughout my life. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done dozens of businesses. And as I tell the kids all the time, most of those businesses have failed. So I've tried things and see what works, what doesn't work, but it's trying to figure out really quickly what's not going to be a good one to focus my time and effort on, and what ones are going to be at the time that I want to spend and actually think it's going to end up being a good business. So I try everything. I try to throw mud to the wall and see if it sticks, and go from there. But just like you said, it's that resilience to not give up. I've had all types of different businesses. I started off mowing lawns as a kid, and I ended up actually building a lawn care company out of it, and ran it for 23 years. One of the things I did when I was in the lawn care business is to get business. I would go door to door, walking neighborhoods, putting flyers on doors or doorsteps. And one day I was walking through the neighborhood, and I would usually walk anywhere from 5 miles to 6 miles a day, just hitting doorsteps. So I was in really good shape. So if you ever want to get in good shape, just go do door hangers.
Right.
But
Noted.
As I was doing that, I said to myself, well, I bet there's a lot of other local businesses that would want their flyers on the door too. So I went back to a networking group that I was in, and I said to all the people on my team, I said, hey, I'm already walking these doors. Why don't you guys advertise with me? I'll put your door hangers on the doors along with my stuff, and then that way we get more flyers out. That ended up turning into another business altogether. We ended up walking flyers to 5 different towns. We had advertising customers that were bringing in more revenue at the time than our lawn care company, because it was generating that income. And then our lawn care company, after doing that many flyers all the time, they were running their operations doubled in size because we just had more advertising out there. So you just never know where the door of opportunity is going to open up and when it's going to work and when it's not. There's other times I did a campaign for a mailbox campaign where I did flyers or through the post office. I spent $10,000 on sending out, I think it was close to 10,000 postcards or something like that. And I got less than 1% response back from those flyers. And so that's why I was out walking doors, because I knew if I walked doors and people saw me on the property and they talked to me, I was going to get sales guaranteed, versus if I did a mailer and it ended up in the mailbox, how many people were actually picking up the phone and calling me?
There's so many lessons in there that I hope people catch. The first lesson that really struck me is successful entrepreneurs are willing to do the things that floundering entrepreneurs are unwilling to do. And I just think, I've been in sales. That's the only thing I've ever done since I was a 19-year-old kid. I've never done anything outside of sales. And I've been better at this and worse at this over the years. It's ebbed and flowed. But how many people are too afraid to pick up the phone? How many people are unwilling to go hang flyers, or unwilling to door knock, or unwilling to call, or unwilling to be proactive? So the first lesson that I hear is you being just willing to do whatever it takes to make your lawn care business successful. And then obviously the second lesson I hear is how you then found some little bright spots, like, hey, I could do this for other people. And you were able to pivot into another opportunity, another market, if you will, of making the flyer hanging, the door hanging, a whole entire separate business. So those are really amazing lessons that, again, I just want to highlight and underscore for people listening. Way to go, JD.
So the fun story about the lawn care company is, so I was working a job. I was working 9 to 5, and I wanted to start this lawn care company. And so I said, I'm going to go out after work, and I started passing out the flyers. And I tried to get enough work for the weekend. Well, I was young. We were just, my wife and I were just married. We had one baby, and we had very little money in our account. We actually had $500 in our checking account to last us the rest of the month. And I went out and I did these flyers, and I picked up all this business, and I came home and told my wife, hey, I have this business that I've done with the flyers. I'm going to go rent some equipment, because I didn't even have equipment or anything to go do this work.
Wow.
So I said, I need to
Find
go rent.
a way. I love it. Sorry.
I said, I need to go rent this equipment. And she goes, how much is it going to cost? And I said, well, probably about $400 to get all the equipment that I need to rent to the day, the lime, the seed, the fertilizer, all these products that I'm going to be putting on lawns and stuff. And she goes, we can't do that. She says, we have $500 in the account for the rest of the month. We still have 15 days to go in the month. And she goes, you can't do that. And I knew that I had the business there. They were waiting for me to come. So as a horrible husband, I did go ahead and take the money out of the account and rent the equipment. And she was just like scared to death that this was not going to work out. But we ended up actually doing over $1,000 of profit that day on one Saturday. We put the money back in our account and had more cash to go. And then we reinvested that back into the business every weekend. And so I would literally walk neighborhoods during the week after work, do the work on a Saturday, and then have that profit coming in that way. So
more lessons. Like you were burning the midnight oil. He's still married too, by the way, folks.
32 years. 32 years.
It didn't cause a divorce. And while I maybe don't totally recommend going against what your spouse said, sometimes we do have to bet on ourselves. And it sounded like you took a calculated risk. Even though she was a little worried, it sounded like you knew that the business was there. You weren't just, spending your last, rent and
I had the sales.
Grocery money.
I had the sales. She just didn't see that I had the sales. Like, she didn't understand that I had gone knocking on all those doors, and they were ready. Customers were waiting for me to come. So
they were ready. So calculated risks, right? That's part of entrepreneurship too. It's not, I'm going through some of this right now where I'm expanding some platforms, and there's a million things you can do. There's this course and that course, and there's this promotional or marketing tool and that one, and there's, this tech and this, like you could literally sign up for everything and not be any further ahead than you are. You have to really discern what's a calculated risk. What's a surer bet than not? There are no sure bets, but what's a surer bet than not? How have you, in addition to that story, how have you weighed calculated risks in your entrepreneurial journey? How have you learned also to say no to things while saying yes to the right things?
Oh, I wish I could say I had figured it all out, but I haven't. After we started the lawn care company, we had an opportunity to buy into a franchise. It was a windshield replacement company. And I thought, hey, this is going to be a better business model. You're getting paid by insurance, your people's auto insurance if they get a window crack or have to have their windshield replaced. And I just jumped in, not doing any research on the industry. And we spent over $150,000 to get the training, the franchise, pay the fees, get the equipment, the trucks, everything. And 6 months into it, the insurance industry changed how they paid out on broken windshields. And they cut it by 40%, which was our margin. It was exactly 40% was our margin and where we made the money. And insurance companies cut it by 40%. So if I would have done my due diligence and really learned about the industry before I just jumped in, I had a salesman that ran the company, and he sold me on the fact that this is a great opportunity, and I just took his word for it. I didn't do my own due diligence to figure it out. And so we lost $150,000 of the investment money, plus it put us behind a year and a half of trying to get back on our feet after doing that. So I wish I could say I know how to make a calculated risk, but looking back now, I definitely would do my due diligence to understand the business model, to understand all the factors that are paying into that business model, so I would have a better understanding of, is this a good calculated risk versus just jumping in because somebody told me, yeah, this is good.
That's so true. I love the lesson of doing due diligence before you jump. There's a saying, probably a Chinese proverb or something like that, that says a smart man learns from their mistakes, but a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. So hopefully people can take that and think about what ways can I talk to other people in the industry? Can I, in that case, if you're basing it on insurance claims, is there any mitigating factors that would change the insurance industry? And it's okay. I want to say it's okay to invest in something like a toe in the water to realize in the exploration phase, it's not a fit. Because I did that. I took an Amazon, an FBA fulfillment. I took a course where, you offshore the manufacturing of products and then you warehouse them in Amazon. And after I took the course, and it wasn't too much, maybe $100 for the course, but I learned everything that it would take to get this going. The startup costs, the amount of noise in the space, the communicating overseas, it wasn't for me. And so, a small calculated risk of a minimal investment versus let me buy a bunch of inventory and dive in without calculating those risks. I mean, you have to find a balance, because sometimes you do have to spend a little money without knowing all the things that you're getting into. But there's certainly ways to hopefully prevent the bigger losses. So what did you do after that? Because that's a pretty significant loss. How did you rally, regroup, and come back even stronger from that?
So we'd start building the lawn care company, and it was always kind of a way to have some extra money on the weekend to do that. Mm-hmm. So once we were out of the windshield business, I had to go full-time back into the lawn care. And so I knew that was a proven model that I could get money. It's just now, how do I do it, make money on a Saturday? How do I make money every day of the week on it? So really it forced me to go to plan B. Sometimes people say, don't have a plan B, you just have to go forward on your plan A. But it didn't work. It didn't work, and we were dead in the water. Like, we had to have some way to pay the bills. We had to have some way to feed the kids. And so the flyer business, like, I just started walking flyers more and more because I knew that if I walked so many hours a day and put out flyers, by the end of the day I would have work. And so it was just,
I love that,
just continuing to do it and do it and do it until
the metrics, the
leading
indicators.
Exactly.
That is so good. That is so good. And I want to highlight something else that you said when you talked about only having $500 in your account, because Jason and I, when the 2009 recession hit, I was in advertising. He was in new construction and remodels, and both of those just absolutely tanked. And that was one of the toughest seasons and Avery was just a baby, like a brand new baby, maybe in her first year. And things just were painful. But I think that, for lack of a better word, there's a little bit of value in being poor, because you you learn some things that you don't learn when money is no object. You learn some things about resourcefulness. You learn some things about figuring it out. Like, I don't have another option. I have to figure it out. Would you say something similar from your experience with having a season where it was tougher to make ends meet versus, just that coloring your experience?
Oh, I think it's always about the pivot, because you never know where the market's going to go, what's going to change. And so you always have to be kind of looking for how would I pivot if something came up? And so I think you always have to have kind of a plan to where you're going to go. Because if you just think, oh, hey, everything's perfect now, it's not always going to be perfect. Every business has ebbs and flows, and it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And I believe in having multiple streams of income. So if there's a tight market on one sector of the economy, we can make up for it. In 2008, 2009, we were in the lawn care business. We were doing really good up to that point. But then everybody was kind of looking for a way to make a buck. So if you had a pickup truck and a lawnmower, you're in the lawn care business now. So our competitors went from a couple hundred in the area to a couple thousand in the area, because everybody was trying to make a buck and do what they can to pay the bills and take care of their family. So what we found is, in the Great Northwest, there's a lot of moss everywhere, right? So our shtick was to sell getting rid of the moss out of the grass. Well, I had a lot of customers over the years saying, well, I have a lot of moss on my roof. Can you get rid of the moss on my roof? And I don't really want to climb on a roof or anything like that. But we ended up pivoting because we needed the work. I said, okay, let's figure out how can we clean roofs and make it a part of our service where we take care of all the moss on the property. And so we pivoted at that time. What we realized is we went from having 1,000 competitors in the lawn business to having only 3 competitors in the Portland metro area that cleaned roofs. No one else was doing it. So all those other companies that were getting the calls, if they were booked, they weren't even answering the phone. So if they called me as a third or fourth opportunity to try to get somebody, I would normally always answer the phone. I during that time period, I said, I am not going to let a phone call go to voicemail. I'm going to answer it. And because we did that, our business changed overnight. The profitability on a roof cleaning is way better than what we were in the lawn business. And so we kind of pivoted during that time and ended up being more of a roof cleaning company. We went from being 90% roof cleaning to about 10% lawn care, because it was more profitable. So we spent our time on doing that. So you got to pivot when the economy changes or when factors in life change.
Yeah. These themes come up over multiple shows, and one of the things I hear is your responsiveness to what your customers wanted. So your pivot was really paying attention to the landscape, no pun intended, but paying attention to the landscape of what are customers saying they need, and how can we fulfill that. And I think that, one, you have to be listening to your customers in order to do that. And 2, you have to have a curious, how can we find a way kind of a mindset. So I love that.
Yeah, and when the customers were asking us before, I didn't want to get into that liability of working on a roof. What if you fall off, or it's slippery, especially in the Northwest. Everything's wet all the time, and there's moss. It's definitely more dangerous of a job. So for years, I was like, why would I want to do that? But as the market changed and I needed the income, we had to do it. So
necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Exactly.
Well, and the other thing that I hear in all of your stories is that you were always going after sales first. And that came up with another guest, Phil, the CFO from a few shows back. And he said, he works with a lot of startups that are wanting venture capital. And he says when venture capital is looking at these startups, they want to see sales. And when we tie back to Biz Kids, when we tie back to your lawn business and how you hustled to go hang door flyers and things like that, you were taking that same approach, and you're teaching these kids that same approach, that that really any good business there's got to be an idea there, but the idea alone isn't enough. Somebody has to be selling that idea. And that's what I see with a lot in your story. What's your mindset around sales? Tell us your thought process around sales. Have you ever resisted being a salesperson?
No, I started off as a salesperson. So I'll tell you two stories. So the first story is when I was a kid, I wanted ice cream from the ice cream truck because it would come through our neighborhood every evening after dinner. And so I would go to my mom and I'd say, hey, can I have some money? And what do moms always say? No, I don't have any money. And so I was out playing in the yard and I noticed her garden was full of cucumbers. And so I went and picked the cucumbers and I went door to door. At 7 years old, I went door to door and I sold all the cucumbers. Later on that evening, she comes in to get dinner ready and she's like, where did all my cucumbers go? And I show her the money that I had made selling the cucumbers and she goes, well, I guess you're getting ice cream. And so I've been in sales from the very beginning. And what I try to teach kids, it doesn't matter if you have a business, if you're an employee, it doesn't, all aspects of our lives, we're always selling ourselves. Even if you're trying to go for a job, you're selling yourself to your employer to say, hey, I'm the best candidate for this job. So you have to understand the sales process and get out there and understand how to get your point across so people will buy what you're selling. Doesn't matter what you're trying to what you're doing in life. Everything from your business to selling Jesus, to whatever it may be, you got to let people know that, hey, I'm a salesperson.
I see so many folks in professional services where I see this the most. Maybe they got a law degree or they're an engineer or an architect. They got some specialization and then they have a little bit of this mindset unintentionally, but because schools tend not to teach this, but they have a little bit of this mindset, sort of, if I learn it, the clients will come, CPA, right? And then they realize if you're working, whether you're working for yourself or working for a larger firm, the firm or your paycheck is going to require you to source clients and sell those clients and differentiate yourself from your competitors and then ultimately close and get them to sign on the dotted line and then ultimately pay for what they committed to paying, cash collection. And so I see often in professional services, people sort of fear sales and selling. They don't want to be too pushy. They don't want to be bother. They don't want to interrupt. Now, this isn't across the board. Obviously, us salespeople have a different approach. But since you work so often with different folks, what would you say to an entrepreneur, a business owner, a professional services provider who is maybe a little bit fearful of being too pushy? What advice would you give them?
I had a meeting the other day with a angel investor. And he told me that 95% of the pitches that he sees, they do not know how to sell. And so they're immediately thrown out. They're immediately thrown out. They don't know how to sell it. They don't know they can talk features all day. This is what we've created, but they don't know how to sell it. And he says that we throw that out right away. So what I tell kids all the time is understand your product inside and out, understand your numbers so that at any moment, even if you have the opportunity of being in the elevator with somebody that you know your 60-second pitch, how to sell yourself in 60 seconds at any moment. So that's what we really focus on in our training is what are you selling and how can you sell it to me in 60 seconds? I do a local networking group and I have adults that still can't tell us what they're selling in 60 seconds. They go on for 5 minutes on droning on and on and on about all the features, but they don't know what they're trying to sell. And so I teach kids, understand your sales process, understand your product, so you know that 60-second pitch no matter where you are, anytime.
And let's go back to Ella for a hot second because Avery and her became acquaintances and liked being next to each other. And I noticed this, what she did really well and what I see some grown adults not do so well, but not their fault if you never learn. So if you're learning it here for the first time, awesome. But you really have to, it's not just about features, it's what pain or problem does your product solve? And that's why one of the reasons Ella has been such a success is the pain or problem is this hands-free, right? Walking your dog hands-free. And who doesn't want to be on a walk FaceTiming someone or texting or, watch. We want to multitask. And
Yep.
so her sale led with the problem she solves, the pain people had, the pain she had. And there are countless times I've left a networking one-on-one or a networking group. Somebody's talked to me for 20 minutes and I still don't quite understand the pain so that I can connect them with somebody else. So being able to articulate that is massive. You've been able to do that in all of your businesses. If someone's recognizing that maybe they could be a little bit better at sales, what would you tell them to do? Because it is a learned skill, right? Not everybody has the gift of sales. Many of us had to learn it. So how would you help someone learn that?
Well, it's all about asking questions. And so instead of telling people what you're selling, ask questions to find out what they are looking for, so you know how to answer that and go start the conversation that way, instead of saying, here's everything I have to sell and pushing it in your face, say, this is what you need. Listen to your customer. Let them tell you what they're looking for, and then show them how your product fills that need or solves that problem for them. I think that's the best benefit. What we see, if you go to events where people are putting up tents or selling their products, and it doesn't even have to be kids, it's adults. Most people sit in the back of the booth, hiding away, so they're not talking to people, they're not starting conversations. They're just hoping that somebody will come up and say, I want to buy your product. So it's all about having that interaction and building that relationship with them, but always start with questions, because questions can always open doors to you saying, hey, I have a solution for your problem.
I love that. Yeah. Questions get to the heart of what someone would need, what pain they have, and then also how deep that pain is that helps them decide, hey, I want to invest money in fixing it. So that's a lot of what we teach as well when we're asking people to, or when we're coaching people to sell more effectively. What's one or two questions that come to mind that you think has been particularly helpful for the young entrepreneurs, but also for grown entrepreneurs like a lot of the listeners?
So one thing that we learned really quick, or I learned, I used to do home shows where we'd be in a booth for 4 days and selling our products. And the mistake I made is every time I get somebody to come up to the booth and talk to me, I would ask them, would you like your lawn worked on, or would you like your lawn and to make made look better? And everybody has this instant where if you're at an event like that, they want to say no. So I was asking them a no question, and they would be like, no, I'm not interested. No, I don't do my lawn, or no. And so I flipped that and I said, instead of asking him, I want to get a no question, I wanted him to say yes, but now I'm going to focus on getting him to say no. So I would go, did you get a coupon yet? And then everybody says no. And once you say that to them and you put your hand out and say, here's a coupon, hand it to them. Did you get a coupon yet? No. They automatically take it. And so we didn't focus in the home shows to really have because there was thousands of people that are walking through the shows. You can't talk to everybody and do your pitch 1,000 times. But I could get cards in their hands so they could take them home and at least review them. And so when I'd say, did you get your coupon yet? No. They'd grab it and they would move on. And we would get calls 2 to 3 years later. The calls would come in after the show, but I had people call me 2 or 3 years later and they're like, I don't know where I got this card, but I picked it up somewhere and I held on to it because I knew someday I would need it. And so it worked just to get it in their hand. They took it home and they saved it. So asking the no questions that you want to get a no answer out of.
That's a really great tip. In informal sales training, we would call both of those things. We'd call the first part a pattern interrupt. So sounding different than everybody else. They're walking up, they're passing hundreds of booths, and it can get a little overwhelming as a consumer. So by having that pattern interrupt, you're interrupting their pattern of I'm good, thanks, not today, thanks, no thank you. So you're interrupting that pattern. And then the other formal piece, whether you were formally doing it or not, but the no means yes close. By getting a no, you actually got a yes for their engagement is just brilliant. And I love that you're just a master of, for lack of a better word, trial and error. Like, you're a professional noticer. That's a phrase I've been tossing around a lot lately. Like, how can we be professional noticers of patterns that work and patterns that don't work? And to me, one of the things that you've done really well over your career is you've been a professional noticer of patterns.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've pivoted when they're not working, and then you've leveraged them when they are working.
And I think that comes down to my dyslexia. It's something, I think the kids that have dyslexia have a superpower that they don't even realize. Because we may have struggles like typing out an email and making it look the right way, or the spelling, or changing numbers and everything like that. But we do really notice patterns. And I think that's really where it comes in, is like, I always find a workaround for the things that I struggle with. And I've done that my whole life, because being dyslexic, I've always had to find a different way of doing things. So maybe that's why I have these patterns where I notice them better than the average person. So if you're a dyslexic, I think you have a superpower that you just need to tap into and figure out how it's going to work for your business.
Leverage your strengths. Well, I've got to ask you, because you put this in our notes. I've got to ask you about the hot dog kid story.
Yeah. So we have one of the things that we do after our markets throughout the season is we have our Biz Kids Expo. The expo is where the kids actually get to sell their product at the mall in Naples, but they also get to pitch their idea to our judges, and we give away $5,000 of prize money. So the kids have some extra seed money that they can put back into their business. So that $5,000 is split between two divisions, and $1,000 for the grand prize for each division, and then $750 and $500. But we also have a pitch contest where the kids submit a video to talk about their business, and they do a little pitch on their video, 90 seconds. And we had a kid that does Vienna beef hot dogs. It's a Chicago style dog that he sells. And his pitch went up on our YouTube channel, and we don't get a lot of viewership on our YouTube. We have a lot of videos there to kind of help the kids see what other kids are doing, but it's not one of those channels that are just getting tons of traffic. But sure. The video made it to the CEO of Vienna Beef in Chicago. I don't know how he found it, how he got it.
Get out.
But he got it, and he reached out to the family. He found the contact of his dad, and he invited him up to Chicago to go to 2 days of Hot Dog University, which is a thing.
Oh my gosh.
Who would have known there was a Hot Dog University?
I was not aware of that one.
But he went
Ivy League?
Ivy League school of Hot Dog University. He went to 2 days of Hot Dog University, and then the CEO spent an entire day with him and his dad and showed him how the operations of the business work. And so he actually got that time. As he came back to town and did this, he got some publicity on the local news. And he said on the local news that Portillo's was one of his inspirations. And Mr. Portillo lives in Naples. So he saw on the news that this kid said, "You are my inspiration." He's a billionaire that lives in Port Royal and in Naples. And he called the dad, said, "Hey, I want you guys to come out to my house." And he spent 2 hours with him, giving him advice on his business. So
wow,
you never know.
Portillo's, you're my inspiration too.
There you go. you never know where the doors of opportunity are going to open, and where things are going to lead for your little Biz Kids business. You started off selling hot dogs, and here you are in Chicago with the CEO of Vienna Beef. We have another young lady that she started off selling bracelets when she was probably 9 years old with us. Her first show, I think she didn't even make $75. And she realized bracelets take a long time. So she started doing baked goods. So she got into cookies and cakes and cupcakes. Then she got into decorating. And she was with Biz Kids through her whole high school career. By the time she was a senior, she had already formed her own LLC. She was working out of a commercial kitchen doing corporate gifts for businesses. So she would do her baking the night before and then go do her deliveries that morning. She connected with some of our mentors in our program. They got her to go to London, or they got her to go to Paris to go to the Cordon Bleu School. While over there, they opened the doors for her to go see a Michelin star restaurant in London and see how it really operates at the high level of restaurateurs. While she was there, they offered her an internship. So she is 19 or 20 years old now. She's in London on an internship because of the doors, that opportunity that opened in Biz Kids for her to learn the restaurant business. And so she's over there at the a Michelin star restaurant in London, learning how to do pastry chef from the best.
So put yourself out there, be brave, be unafraid to fail. Failure is part of the process.
Absolutely.
Any other final lessons to not only share with future biz kids, current biz kids, but also adults who may be just starting their entrepreneurial journey? Any other tips and pearls of wisdom to help them be more relentless?
You know, the biggest advice I can get, and this is not for kids, this is for parents. Parents, let your kids fail. Like, we have so many kids, parents that come into our program, and they want to do all the work for the kids and show them how to do it and say, this is the way it should be done. But just let the kids get out there and make the mistakes, because if they don't make the mistakes, they're not going to learn. I've had kids at the end of the day, they're crying in mom and dad's arms because they didn't make as much as everybody else. And they just give up and they don't come back to our show. And so I run into the parents later on. I'm like, well, why don't you guys come back? And they're like, well, we didn't make any money. It wasn't worth it. Well, I'm like, this is part of the process. If you learn now as a youngster, hey, this didn't work, how can I fix it and work on it? If they get to be an adult and they buy a business or they decide to go into business for themselves, are they going to quit the first time it gets hard? Because
even as an employee, yeah.
Yeah, even as an employee. Because if you quit every time it gets hard, guess what? You're not going to make it you're not going to have that progression over your career at all. So you need to teach your kids, let them fail, then talk about it and say, hey, let's figure out why it failed. It wasn't you personally. It wasn't something that because of your personality or your learning disability. You can't blame it on any of that. It could be a number of different things, but let's figure out what exactly was it and how can we make it better. So give your kids the opportunity to fail.
Thank you for that. And I heard analogy. You know, we all know the analogy of the helicopter or metaphor of the helicopter parents.
Exactly.
But I heard one that talked about Zamboni parents. And helicopter parents hover over, you know, if their kid falls down, they're hovering over, they're right there. But Zamboni parents actually go ahead and smooth the ice so their kids never have any rough ice. And one of the things that you've done an excellent job of highlighting today is how important failure is to success, because so much of success requires resilience. And if you don't learn to fail on smaller things and get back up, you'll never be able to get back up from the bigger things that knock you down. And that's whether you're an entrepreneur, an employee, a business owner, a startup. It's whether you're 7 or 17 or 77. So I appreciate, JD, everything that you've shared with us. There's so many golden nuggets here. Tell us where we can find not only Biz Kids, but the Biz Kids YouTube channel and for that famous hot dog video. Where can we find you and Biz Kids?
Biz Kids Hub is our YouTube channel. If you look up Biz Kids Hub, you'll find all of our videos there. And we do...
Biz is with a Z, correct?
Biz Kids with a Z, yeah. That is a little tricky because that's one of the things you learn in business is if I would have used an S, there's a TV show that was on back in the day. Back in, I think, 2011, and every time you do a Google search, their stuff still comes up because they had a lot of content. So, but yeah, Biz Kids with a Z, and then our website is bizkidsusa.org. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. What our goal is to get connected with families of any type that want to learn about entrepreneurship. So I talk to a lot of schools, homeschool co-ops, church groups. If you have a group of kids and you want to get kind of started, look us up and I'll come out and I'll do a little class for the kids, give them a workbook that they can work through and they can get started. If they want to compete, we're giving away $7,000 of prize money this year. In May, we have our Biz Kids Expo where the kids can actually pitch their idea to our judges. And then we have a live pitch contest where the kids submit a 90-second video The top 10 kids will be chosen to go onto a live event in front of angel investors and CEOs, where they'll get to pitch their idea in front of a live audience. We'll have about 80 people in the room to pitch to. So it gets them over that fear of being in front of a crowd and selling their stuff. But we're giving another $3,500 away at that event. So there are opportunities for scholarship money. So if you have a business idea and you think, hey, this would work, but I don't have the money to get started, you can compete for this funds, and then that way you have a little extra cash to get it going. It doesn't have to come out of mom and dad.
Well, I love that, and that's phenomenal. And thank you for giving kids this opportunity. Thank you for pouring into them and taking all the lessons you've learned over the years and helping elevate our youth. I will put the exact spelling in the show notes. And JD, it's been wonderful to chat with you today. JD Ribali with Biz Kids USA.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'd love to talk to more kids. So if you got kids that are interested, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help them.
Incredible. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. If you want to build discipline, resilience, and results in your own work, that's what I help leaders and entrepreneurs do through coaching, speaking, and training. If today's conversation got you thinking about how you'd like to show up, you can find me through the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay relentless.